A single shot pierces through the glass, chaos erupts as security scrambles. An explosion rips through the building. He quickly neutralizes a few of Bianca's team members before vanishing into the shadows. Realizing the trap, Elias stiffens. His breath quickens when he recognizes the assassin. The pursuing team tries to close in, but their shots miss as he races into the woods.
Leader, pick me up.
Furious when he discovers Attila's death, who tries to escape but fails to start the truck. He then prepares his rifle, setting it up on a Steadicam rig to guarantee precision. With the gun perfectly positioned, he takes a few test shots, making sure everything is in order before his main target. His calm and focused demeanor shows that he's out of time and wants to get this job done.
Task.
Welcome to Cephastok Movie Recaps. Today we delve into the details of The Day of the Jackal full Season 1 recap. If you're new to this channel, please do subscribe and let us know where you're watching from in the comments section. Your support is greatly appreciated, my dear friend. Thank you. The series begins with an old man. Ralph plays a tape recorder, mimicking the voice. Wearing a name tag, he whispers a chant and walks off with a gun. But it's a disguise. The real Ralph lies dead on the sofa, strangled. The imposter takes his ID, hides the gun, and leaves. In Munich, the imposter walks with quiet purpose. A campaign ad for Manfred Fest flickers as he crushes his cigarette. His calm demeanor hides something dark. At an office building, he arrives disguised as an old janitor. With a raspy cough and Ralph's ID, he passes security. A guard watches him closely, but he moves with ease. Walking the hallway, he spots Elias talking with Jennifer nearby. Slipping into an empty office, he shuts the blinds, turns on a vacuum cleaner for noise, and assembles his silenced gun. Jennifer enters unexpectedly. A single shot to the head. A guard hears something and rushes over, spotting Ralph, and before realizing the truth, he's shot with the other guards who followed. The imposter turns his gun on Elias, sending him tumbling and hitting his leg. With a clear shot, the assassin hesitates, missing on purpose. Chaos erupts. Guards fall, gas bombs explode, and he escapes by zip lining off the roof. Moving back in his room, the master of disguise removes his mask, revealing a sharp, determined face. He washes away the last traces of his disguise, his hands steady. Beneath the mask is not an old man, but a bold, middle-aged man, calm and focused. He takes a deep breath as he relaxes in his coach. The mission isn't over yet. This is just the beginning. A German news report covers the attack on Elias, son of politician Manfred Fest. With rising speculation about political motives, a tense Manfred, under heavy security, heads to the hospital to see his son. The killer prepares for his next move, watching from a balcony near the hospital. Was Elias just a distraction? The real target remains unknown for now. Meanwhile, Manfred, concerned about his wife's reaction, sends a reassuring message. In the meantime, the assassin readies his sniper gear, waiting for the right moment. Manfred also speaks to the British media about Uldag Charles, real name Suleiman, dismissing his software as a fraud despite its claim to change the world.
But all he wants to do is destroy it.
The assassin waits calmly, adjusting the focus knob, scanning the scene. Outside the hospital, crowds of protesters roar, their voices echoing through the streets. He even takes a few test shots, ensuring precision. Finally, the long-awaited convoy arrives. Security swarms the area as the politician steps out, flanked by his associates. Moving toward the glass entrance doors, he remains unaware of the danger lurking nearby. The sniper fires without hesitation, hitting his target with deadly precision. A single shot pierces through the glass, striking Manfred in the back of the head. Chaos erupts as security scrambles. The police quickly trace the sniper's location, but he lingers just long enough for security to catch a glint from his scope, on purpose. Then, with precision, he packs up and moves. Before leaving, he triggers the fire alarm, ensuring civilians evacuate before chaos unfolds. Slipping into the parking garage, he swaps vehicles and drives off unnoticed. Moments later, as authorities storm his apartment, an explosion rips through the building. Another blast follows in the garage, the car he used now a fiery wreck. Mission accomplished. Over in London at MI6 headquarters, Bianca, known for her bold and outspoken attitude, inspects a Russian 2,000 milligrams rifle from Belgian dealers. She stops when a live broadcast from Germany catches her attention.
Germany?
Meanwhile, the assassin makes a quick stop in Nuremberg, buying a chess box before continuing his journey. Bianca lives with her husband, Paul Pullman, and their daughter, Jasmine. As Jasmine reminds Bianca about the upcoming parent-teacher evening, Bianca remains focused on the news. A breaking story details a sniper attack, with a single bullet that took out a prominent German politician. Despite Jasmine's attempts to get her attention, Bianca is too absorbed, her mind racing with thoughts about the assassin's precision and the implications of the attack. In the meantime, the assassin leaves Nuremberg, driving to Paris in a rental car. He blends in, wearing glasses and using a different accent.
I was visiting someone in business.
He carries a box with an ivory chess set, showing it to a border patrol agent as proof he's an antique collector. With no trouble, he passes security and continues on his way, unnoticed and calm as though nothing unusual is happening.
You can go. Thank you very much.
Moving back to London, Bianca arrives at work, frustrated with the building miles away the sniper took the shot, a detail the Germans reported but she finds hard to believe. Snipers are her specialty, and she's determined to be involved in the case.
That's not possible.
Pushing past her hesitant superior Osita Halcrow, she argues with German intelligence agent Werner Lechner over the confirmed distance.
There's been a lot of speculation about the shot.
A heated debate follows about the rifle used in the assassination. It's clear the shooter left with a smaller bag, but Bianca insists the weapon was broken down and hidden inside. While it seems impossible to dismantle a sniper rifle without compromising its function,
His name is Norman Stoke.
Bianca knows of Norman Stoke, a notorious gunmaker from Northern Ireland, wanted since the 2018 Stockholm assassination. She believes Stoke might be the key and plans to track him down with the help of her asset. Sarcastic but determined, she presses forward, knowing this is the only lead. Reluctantly, her superior agrees to put her on the case. After the briefing, Bianca tells her superior, Isabel, about Norman Stoke's links to the loyalist paramilitaries in East Belfast, and his brother Larry who murdered lots of innocents. She mentions her asset, Sparrow, in Belfast, who could help find him.
Don't let me down.
In Paris, the assassin visits an internet cafe to check for an update on his payment for the Munich job. He sits quietly, scanning the screen, waiting for confirmation before continuing with his next move. Bianca heads to Belfast, skipping parents' evening without consulting her family.
You look like you're at an end.
She quickly apologizes, focusing on the mission ahead.
There was nothing I could...
At the cafe, the assassin receives details of another job, with a $10 million guide price payout. He demands $1 million upfront if they need to meet in person to finalize the deal. In Belfast, Bianca meets Sparrow, real name Alison Stoke, in a local grocery shop.
How have you been?
She asserts herself, demanding that Alison help track down her elusive brother-in-law, Norman Stoke. Bianca believes Norman's location is tied to his brother, Larry Stoke, who once worked closely with him. With a mix of persuasion and pressure, Bianca insists Alison use her connections to gather information, all while reminding her that this could be their only chance to catch Norman.
I expect to hear from you tonight.
Back at the cafe, the deposit for meeting is paid and Assassin is seen move instantly on receipt of notification. Bianca just after catches the last flight home. When she arrives, Jasmine is clearly upset at her apologetic mum, but she knows words won't fix it. She's let her daughter down again. In Sweden, the assassin arrives at a secluded barn house by a quiet lake, blending in with dark shades and a cap. He meets his contact, keeping his tone firm and businesslike.
Don't let her out.
The original offer of $10 million is no longer enough. He demands 10 times that amount. Half must be paid up front, the rest upon completion. His contact hesitates, but the assassin remains unmoved. If they want the job done right, they'll have to meet his terms.
Get me everything we have on...
At MI6 headquarters, Bianca grows anxious waiting for Alison's response. Late to a meeting, she interrupts with a bold theory. Elias was just bait to draw his father to the hospital. Pressed about Belfast, she hesitates, then suggests stirring a leftist radical group led by the outspoken Emma. This is Sparrow's daughter. Bianca singles her out,
Just go get her.
separating her from the crowd with quiet authority. She leans in, her tone firm but calm, hinting at potential arrest over fabricated charges. The girl's eyes widen with uncertainty, but Bianca presses on, making it clear that cooperation is the easiest way out. She urges her to call her mother, knowing that a direct line to Sparrow is the quickest way to get the information she needs.
You can call your mother.
The girl hesitates, torn between fear and loyalty. While Bianca watches closely, Emma is then locked up to her dismay until she cooperates. The assassin's meeting is short, and soon he returns home to Cadiz, Spain. Stepping through the door, he's greeted by his wife, Nuria, whose face lights up with joy. She embraces him warmly, unaware of the darkness he carries. In London, Emma collapses in her cell, her body convulsing before going still. Paramedics rush her to the hospital, sirens blaring, while Bianca watches in shock. As the heart monitor flatlines, dread washes over her. This was never part of the plan. Everything is unraveling fast. Meanwhile, in Cadiz, the assassin grows impatient. The 3.75 million euros from the Munich job is still unpaid. He messages his contact again, expecting an update. Instead, his screen flashes with a blunt reply to forget the unpaid date. This isn't just a delay, it's a betrayal. After the setback, the assassin enjoys the quiet morning in the open fields, his gaze fixed on a vulture tearing into its lifeless prey. In London, reports show Germany's political landscape in chaos post-assassination. Bianca gets a call from Allison, furious about Emma's arrest.
What's going on?
She demands her daughter's release, but Bianca sees an opportunity.
I know you can get her out.
She pressures Allison, using her daughter's freedom as leverage to get information on Norman Stokes' location. Meanwhile, the assassin still enjoys his brief break, savoring quiet moments with his family in Spain. Moving back to MI6, things are falling apart.
Emma had a pre-existing heart condition.
Emma is dead, but Bianca presses on, undeterred, while Isabel and Osita Halcrow are frustrated. They bring in Carver to handle the mess and cover their tracks. Bianca keeps Emma's death from Allison, fearing it will ruin her mission. Halcrow wants to close the case, but Isabel reminds her they promised the Germans assistance. Bianca remains hopeful that Sparrow will come through, though time is running out. With less than a day left,
24 hours maybe.
Sparrow is their only lead. Reluctantly, Isabel lets Bianca proceed, and Bianca calls Allison, manipulating the truth to secure cooperation. Meanwhile, the assassin, now known as Charles, though his real identity remains a mystery, has been assigned a new target, tech mogul Uldag Charles UDC. Charles is not only focused on eliminating UDC but also determined to track down the individual withholding his payment from the recent job. With his sights set on both the target and the money owed, he prepares for the next phase of his deadly mission. Well, Nuria demands his undivided attention, but he's clearly preoccupied.
You misunderstood their obligations, did you?
He tells her about a client from his last job who's failing to fulfill their promises. She offers to help, but he smiles, assuring her not to worry. Charles tells her he'll handle it. In an effort to ease her mind, he piques her interest with news of another job, promising it'll keep the family secure. Their conversation lightens the mood, and the couple shares a sweet, quiet moment together. The order for the hit on UDC comes from New York, where a group of shadowy businessmen, led by Timothy Winthorpe,
Can we trust?
their main concern is UDC's new project, River, a revolutionary tech initiative promising global economic justice through total financial transparency. UDC intends to redistribute wealth, but while he has nothing to hide, others certainly do. Winthorpe and his associates want the job done before the River project launches,
Well, I got nothing to hide.
fearing its potential to disrupt the balance of power. In Spain, Charles and his family celebrate Carlito's birthday quietly. He maintains a strict no social media policy, ensuring his anonymity. This rule isn't just for Nuria. Their son is also kept in the loop, avoiding any online exposure during the celebration. In Belarus, Allison and Larry anxiously discuss their imprisoned daughter. Allison urges Larry to contact his brother for assistance, though her true intention is to obtain Norman's contact details, hoping it will help their situation. During Carlito's birthday, Charles's brother-in-law, Alvaro, admires him deeply and tries to engage in a conversation, despite their language barrier.
My English is very difficult.
Alvaro pitches a business idea, but before Charles can respond, his phone buzzes with an urgent notification. The assassin, Charles, receives critical details about the fund's origin. They trace back to Munich. Without hesitation, he steps away from the gathering at his son's birthday, much to Nuria's dismay.
No, not again, please.
She expresses her frustration but understands the routine as Charles is in the zone when on a job. Though visibly upset, she drives him to the airport, aware that this has become an all too familiar scenario in their lives. The tension between family life and his secretive work is palpable, but Nuria knows Charles has a commitment to his profession, one that seems to take precedence, even on special occasions.
Enlarge the backpack for me.
Bianca dives deep into the case, using her sharp instincts and connections. She uncovers clues, noting the killer's right-handedness and language skills, suggesting he's not necessarily German. Her persistence leads her to trace a distinctive bag, despite the logo being intentionally ripped off. Nuria, meanwhile, wishes Charles a safe flight and watches as he heads to the airport.
I know you too.
But as soon as she's out of sight, he switches to a taxi. This shift is a sign that he's serious, he's prepared. The killer carries multiple passports, each for a different nationality, and his fluency in languages adds to his unpredictability. As Charles's taxi passes by, Nuria stops to pick up flowers on her way home. She catches a glimpse of him in the taxi, though she doesn't realize the full significance of the moment. Although she tried to call his phone, it was off. The killer, however, is always steps ahead, blending seamlessly into the background of her world. Back at home, Nuria is visibly shaken, her mind racing with doubts about her husband. She's troubled by his secrecy and fears he might be cheating. She confides in her mother and Alvaro, asking them to remain calm and not to jump to conclusions. But the worry lingers, gnawing at her. Allison continues to pressure Larry, urging him to reach out to his brother, Norman Stoke.
Twice.
Meanwhile, Bianca digs into the details surrounding the sniper's bag and the precision of the shot, concluding that their target is likely British, possibly ex-army, and works alone. She barges into a meeting with her hesitant superiors, Isabel and Halcrow, breaking the news that the sniper is a highly skilled British assassin. Racing against time, Bianca convinces them to give her more time to investigate further.
So we think the sniper is British?
A quick reminder from her daughter, Jasmine, about dinner later pulls her focus momentarily.
Yep, alright.
Back at work, Bianca dives deep, searching army records for exceptional sniper candidates, focusing on right-handed marksmen. As Charles drives through Bavaria, Germany, he gets a call from Leonore, his handler for the UDC hit.
I've spoken to my colleagues.
She insists on an urgent meeting within 48 hours, threatening consequences if he doesn't comply. He agrees. That evening in London, Bianca joins her family for dinner, which her daughter Jasmine prepared.
Okay.
They're joined by her husband's 2 sons from his ex-wife, creating a cordial atmosphere.
You good?
Hi.
While at dinner, Sparrow manages to distract Larry and gets Norman Stoke's contact details. She quickly forwards the number to Bianca, who rushes out of the dinner, much to her family's displeasure.
1 second.
After a brief moment, Bianca discovers that Norman Stoke is in Belarus and makes the decision to leave immediately, leaving her family upset and disappointed.
I'm sorry, guys.
In Munich, Leonore arrives and receives a note containing the details for her upcoming meeting appointment.
Miss Jensen?
Bianca heads to Belarus with her partner, Spencer, fully aware she's diving into danger. She keeps Allison in the dark about Emma's fate, fearing that revealing the truth could alert Larry and jeopardize their lead on Norman. Charles, in disguise, tracks Leonore from behind to the meeting spot for the UDC job. They negotiate the final payment, with Leonore authorized to pay only $20 million to start. The job must be completed on the 28th, before River's release. Leonore, cautious of Charles still being in Munich after the Manfred hit,
Why are you still in Munich?
warns him not to draw attention to himself. She insists that anything suspicious could ruin their deal. However, with his thirst for vengeance, Charles knows that staying under the radar will be difficult. For now, the code word for UDC is Rodan,
Why not the Jackal?
and the assassin will go by Jackal.
Why not?
The Jackal discovers that the payment withheld from him originates from a company account named Hellalinia. Intrigued, he decides to follow the trail, sensing that this could lead him closer to those responsible for the delay. With sharp focus, he begins tracing the path, knowing this information could be crucial for his next move. Bianca and her team make their way through the dense woods of Smarhan, Belarus, approaching an old house surrounded by a junkyard of rusted cars and parts. They position themselves carefully, ready to breach.
25 meters out of the rim.
As they burst through the door, they're met with chaos. Norman was expecting them. He quickly neutralizes a few of Bianca's team members before vanishing into the shadows.
This is my count! Two packs down.
Amid the wreckage, Bianca discovers the suitcase that Charles had abandoned earlier, hidden just outside in the woods. The hunt is far from over. The Jackal uncovers a shocking connection. The trail leads to Hans Lang and Elias Fest, the same Elias he spared in Munich. Meanwhile, Bianca, grim-faced, tosses the suitcase and her fallen teammates into the back of her car. She drives back to MI6, bracing herself for the storm of consequences awaiting her. On a train to London, Alison and Larry Stoke are devastated as they receive the heartbreaking news of Emma's death.
Are you gonna love this, Bianca? It's
At MI6 headquarters, Bianca arrives with a suitcase from the Norman ambush. Her superiors, already fuming, immediately reprimand her for the failed operation and the deaths of her teammates. The mission is in disarray, and Isabel insists it must be shut down, unable to find any reason to continue. Bianca, unfazed by the deaths, presents the suitcase, revealing it holds a disguised sniper rifle. The team is stunned by its intricate craftsmanship. She casually admits she didn't realize she'd taken the murder weapon through security. This discovery explains how the assassin slipped past unnoticed, with Norman Stoke's help. Isabel, astonished, reconsiders her decision, agreeing the operation must continue due to the new evidence. After, Bianca records a voice note for Alison, offering a heartfelt apology. She insists they meet in person, wanting a chance to explain everything and clear the air. Meanwhile in Munich, the Jackal is deep in his hunt. Disguised as an elderly man, Herr Bauer, he hobbles into Fraud Mockler's funeral service office, feigning grief over his recently deceased mother. With a frail voice, he requests assistance to buy himself time, sending the receptionist outside to retrieve his medication from a blue Audi, claiming he left his pills in the car. The moment she steps out, he discreetly plants a remote surveillance device on Mockler's office computer. He completes his task undisturbed. By the time she returns, the Jackal has already achieved his goal, gaining access to crucial information without raising suspicion. This leads us to Elias, who is just as determined to move freely again. Refusing to rely on crutches despite his doctor's warnings, he pushes himself to stand. His frustration runs deeper though. He confronts the security guard, demanding answers on why his father wasn't better protected. The Jackal's target is Elias, uncovering his driver's name, Stefan Wolf. With his plan in place, he prepares to make his move, but pauses to call Nuria first. She doesn't waste a second. Her suspicion burns through the phone.
I saw you passing a taxi.
She's convinced she saw him in a taxi, and now she's asking outright if he's having an affair. Charles keeps his voice steady, denying everything. He flips the camera, showing the dull hotel room he's in, trying to prove himself.
Let me see the bathroom.
But Nuria isn't convinced. She pleads for him to come home, to be with her. For the first time, the Jackal falters. He has no answers, no clever way to reassure her. The call ends unresolved, leaving a tension that lingers, but he doesn't have time to dwell. He steels himself, refocusing on the job at hand. Elias is still out there, and Stefan Wolf is his way in.
It's not good enough, Charles.
Determined and relentless, Nuria refuses to ignore her suspicions. Something feels off, and she won't rest until she uncovers the truth. Fueled by desperation, she searches through Charles's belongings. Then, beneath the floorboards, she discovers a hidden safe. Her heart pounds. In London, Bianca waits for Alison, who arrives grief-stricken and seething.
I'm so sorry about him.
Alison refuses to believe Emma had any pre-existing conditions and is enraged that her daughter died in police custody. Though Bianca was the one who put Emma there, she remains indifferent, shifting the conversation to Larry. His number was on Norman's phone. She subtly threatens Alison,
Assisting an offender
implying that assisting an offender could land Larry in jail. Alison, disgusted, refuses to play along. Meanwhile, Larry gets a call from Norman, furious that Alison betrayed him by giving out his number. He confronts her, but she lies, claiming an unknown contact, Nadine, is a new hairdresser.
Give me a phone.
Harry, however, isn't fooled. He spots a message sent to Nadine, who is actually Bianca. Furious, he punches the wall, his rage uncontrollable. Alison panics and tries to flee, but Harry grabs her by the hair, dragging her back into the room. At this point, everything has gotten out of hand between the couple. Damien meets with an Army Sniper Academy officer who provides a list of individuals that might fit their case search parameters. The officer doubts any could make a 3,815-meter shot. Either the Germans miscalculated or the shooter trained elsewhere.
He's not a professor, is he? He's...
Back at MI6, Bianca faces questioning by Carver, who's investigating a leak within the station. He brings up her mother's alcoholism and shelter, suggesting Bianca might be feeding information to an assassin to fund her. Bianca denies the accusation, but the pressure mounts. No one is trusted and everyone is a suspect now. In Spain, Nuria enlists her family to break into the hidden safe. They fail with the combination, and Alvaro suggests using a metal grinder, though it's risky. Instead, they decide to find purchase receipts and approach the manufacturer for a new code.
The Special Forces gave me a list of them.
At MI6, Damien reports back to Bianca with a list of potential snipers from Special Forces that fit their case parameters. However, Carver is still investigating the leak inside the embassy, and now it's Damien's turn to be questioned. Isabel, noticing Bianca's overwhelmed state, advises her to take a step back and cool off. Meanwhile, the investigation into the mole intensifies. The only ones who knew about the operation are Isabel, Osita Halcrow, and Damien, so one of them could be compromised. Halcrow takes Bianca aside to privately discuss the matter, revealing his long-standing unofficial contact in America, who has been instrumental in the case. However, the mole issue has complicated things. The two conclude the problem is likely within their ranks, and Bianca must now keep a tighter circle of trust moving forward.
Keep the circle tight.
Back in Spain, Nuria and her family continue their investigation, examining the house's blueprints. Their efforts lead them to a startling discovery: there's a hidden chamber concealed within the property. Moving back to Munich, the Jackal gets a call from Leonore confirming the commencement fee and updating him on Rodin's movements. His employers demand full commitment, but he's preoccupied. Disguised as Stefan Wolf, he executes the real driver and prepares a bomb to eliminate Elias.
It's the Carver experience.
At MI6 headquarters, Bianca grows restless waiting for Sparrow's update.
Not yet.
She's also wary of Damien, sensing something off. To buy time, she sends him for coffee while investigating a series of messages linked to Manfred's death.
Calls and messages from a single.
The name Jackal appears repeatedly, prompting her to search for its meaning. In Munich, the Fest family gathers for Manfred's funeral. Elias, still weak from his injuries, limps through the crowd, greeting guests with forced composure.
Meine Anwälte werden sich mit.
His sister corners him, their hushed argument over their father's estate simmering beneath the formalities.
Julia wird nicht mit mir mit.
Meanwhile, the Jackal, disguised as Stefan Wolf, waits patiently, his plan already in motion. As the funeral procession departs, security is tight, but no one suspects the imposter behind the wheel. Elias, distracted by his own thoughts, barely acknowledges his driver. The Jackal probes him with small talk, but Elias remains indifferent, until the first gunshot. The guard riding shotgun slumps forward. In a blur, the Jackal yanks the wheel, expertly veering off course. Realizing the trap, Elias stiffens. His breath quickens when he recognizes the assassin. Panic sets in. Stammering, he confesses, he was the one who ordered his father's assassination.
I had you to shoot my father and then you shot me.
A desperate bribe follows, but the Jackal only smirks.
I'll pay you.
But it's not about the money.
He sneers before pulling the trigger. Minutes later, the Jackal blends dressed in fresh clothes, set the bomb and vanished as chaos unfolds behind him. A fiery explosion erupts from the wreckage. Allison hesitates but ultimately agrees to assist Bianca, sending a discreet text. Meanwhile, Nuria and her family crack open the Jackal's hidden safe, uncovering face molds, weapons, passports, and piles of cash. Unbeknownst to them, surveillance cameras are rolling. The Jackal sees everything and knows Nuria is closing in on him.
Well, Manfred and Elias West were not...
Meanwhile, the media is in a frenzy over Elias' assassination as the hunt for his killer intensifies. At MI6, a high-level meeting erupts over shocking intel. Elias had hired an assassin to kill his own father, Manfred. Though the call wasn't recorded, Bianca senses a lead. Wasting no time, she reaches for her phone to contact Allison. The Jackal arrives in France, feeling the heat as authorities across Europe intensify their search. Distracted on the road, he crashes into a truck, an unfortunate mistake. The truck driver, stubborn and confrontational, refuses to settle things quietly and flags down a passing police patrol. The officer, suspicious, asks for ID. The Jackal, using a French alias, Anthony, hands it over, but the officer demands to see inside his vehicle. Upon finding multiple passports, things take a bad turn. Realizing he's been cornered, the Jackal acts fast, shooting both the officer and the truck driver. Sloppiness is creeping in, but he quickly stages the scene, placing their weapons to make it look like they killed each other. Without looking back, he gets back on the road. Back at MI6, OC's American contact picks up chatter about another planned hit. Someone has hired the Jackal again, but the target remains unknown.
En route.
Time is running out, they need a lead fast. Over in Spain, the Jackal calls Nuria, inviting her to Paris for a talk and some time together. He knows she's onto him and is trying to play it cool. But deep down, he fears losing his family, and if she digs too deep, he might have no choice but to silence her.
I love you.
At MI6, Damien reports on ex-army operative George Hans, but Bianca keeps him distant, wary of the mole. Meanwhile, the Jackal quickly changes cars, blending into the surroundings seamlessly. Bianca talks to George about the sniper shot, and he mentions the incredible distance and timing.
115 meters.
He even jokes, saying he could make that kind of shot in his prime. However, None of the names Bianca has seen capable of the feat. George insists the shooter must be from the army. Though wary of Bianca's probing, George finally gives in.
Alexander Duggan.
He reveals a name, Alexander Duggan, a legendary sniper who was with Sterling after George's time. Unfortunately, Duggan and his team were killed by an IED 10 years ago.
So Duggan's dead.
George's sarcasm doesn't sit well with Bianca, but she ignores it and calls Damien at the office.
Please, just do it.
She orders him to dig up everything on Duggan, even though he's supposedly dead. The Jackal checks into a hotel in Paris, settling into his room. He takes some time to exercise, then hides his gun out of sight. Before anything else, he puts his wedding ring back on, preparing to meet his wife. His calm demeanor hides the tension of what's to come. When Nuria arrives, she wastes no time. She slaps the Jackal hard across the face and demands the truth. He exhales, choosing his words carefully. He admits he's a troubleshooter, sent around the world to handle difficult situations. But he insists it's not about killing people, just industrial espionage, sometimes bending the law. It's a clever mix of truth and deception, carefully designed to keep her from panicking. He assures her that once this job is over, he's done for good. A fresh start, a better life, just the three of them.
How can I believe it?
Nuria's eyes burn with anger. She feels betrayed, knowing now that their life together was built on lies. But as furious as she is, the Jackal knows how to calm her down. He speaks softly, reassures her, holds her close. She doesn't believe him completely, but for now, she listens. After Elias's death, the New York bosses are frustrated. The Jackal was supposed to lay low, yet he's making headlines. Winthorpe respects his boldness, but trust is fading. Leonore is ordered to find him, fast. Time is running out.
He's not gonna like that.
We're sticking with the
At MI6, Sparrow's tracking monitor hasn't moved for days, raising concern. Meanwhile, Larry is consumed by rage and regret over what he did to Allison. But the truth is she's already dead, and he now has her phone. Using it, he tricks Bianca into meeting him. She arrives unsuspecting, only to find an enraged Larry waiting. Without warning, he lunges at her with a knife. Bianca fights back and manages to escape into a crowded street. With Larry still pursuing her, she frantically calls MI6 for help. Agents arrive just in time, but as soon as Larry spots them, he takes off. They later raid his apartment, hoping for answers, only to discover Allison's lifeless body. Meanwhile, the Jackal bids his wife goodbye with a kiss before slipping away. After the incident, Bianca gets patched up, and Vince hands her a gun for protection. Back home, she quietly returns with her arm wrapped, avoiding any discussion with Paul.
Can you tell me what happened?
She gives him a casual kiss and hug before sending him off on his business trip. For the first time, Bianca shows vulnerability. She stands in front of the mirror, holding the gun, anxiety clear on her face. Things at work aren't any easier for her. Larry's escape, 2 dead officers in Belarus, an asset murdered, and Carver investigating everyone. Isabel is struggling to protect her, and they need to move forward. Bianca requests Vince's reassignment, and Isabel agrees, but faces pressure from the Foreign Secretary for constant updates.
Very well.
In the meantime, Larry calls Norman, who is in the hideouts, and manages to get Bianca's home address. In Croatia, UDC is enjoying a swim on a small beautiful island when he hears about a contract on his life. He brushes it off, confident it won't affect him. His security team insists he stay, but UDC is set on moving forward with his plan to announce River, regardless of the risk.
Will be extremely vulnerable.
The security team remains highly alert. The Jackal leaves Paris and heads to Tallinn, Estonia, for a concert. He smoothly passes through security with a small metal gadget hidden in his wallet. His goal is to scout the venue, as this is where the big announcement about River is set to happen.
All clear.
Amid the loud disco music and the dancing crowd, the Jackal remains focused, carefully studying the venue to find the best spot for his operation. He blends into the chaos, his eyes scanning every corner, planning his next move with precision. Bianca talks to Vince, sharing what she's discovered so far. They need to figure out who the Rodan code word points to quickly. Vince then shifts the conversation to Bianca's marriage. She dismisses it as good, but her unconvincing tone reveals the truth: things aren't going well. The Jackal sneaks up to the roof of the concert venue, looking for the perfect spot. However, the sound canopy opens unexpectedly, catching him off guard. He struggles to hold on to a hanging strap to avoid falling, but in the chaos, his phone drops to the floor below. He narrowly escapes danger. The Jackal is shaken but moves on, continuing his plan. Later, a worker named Rasmus helps him retrieve the phone, and they exchange contact information.
Here it is.
When Bianca arrives home, she is shocked to find Larry holding Jasmine at knife point. Without hesitation, she strikes Larry in the leg and demands he reveals everything, threatening to kill him if he doesn't comply. Jasmine, frightened, begs Bianca to stop. She admits she knows the truth about Emma's death, but lies to Jasmine, saying it wasn't her fault. Just as they argue, the police arrive and arrest Larry. Meanwhile, the Jackal returns to his hotel room, only to find Leonore, his contact from New York, waiting for him. Furious that his clients have tracked him down, he fumes with anger. Aboard a yacht in Tallinn, Estonia, the Jackal sails, lost in thought, recalling his tense meeting with Leonore. She had warned him, failure was not an option.
You've taken $20 million from...
The people he worked for were far more powerful than he realized. If he had any doubts, she suggested he ask Norman Stoke.
Just ask Norman Stoke.
Despite the warning, Leonore admitted she admired his work. However, she made it clear she wasn't leaving until the job was done.
A babysitter.
The Jackal wasn't thrilled about a babysitter, but this was non-negotiable. As he gazes ashore, he spots an injured woman in a walker boot, an idea forming. Bianca arrives at the hospital with her partner, Vince, to see Larry.
No one comes in, understood?
Vince asks the guard on duty to wait outside before Bianca, infuriated and relentless, immediately begins torturing the bedridden Larry, offering him a deal, a reduced prison sentence, a proper burial for his wife and daughter, and Norman's life spared. But Larry remains stubborn, at least for now. Using a secure line, the Jackal speaks with Norman, who boasts about being a maestro in crafting fine instruments, congratulating him on his last performance. However, the Jackal presses him about recent events. Norman admits something unusual happened. Unexpected visitors showed up while he was away on business. Each handled them before slipping away. The Jackal insists on confirming their security before continuing their work, creating slight tension. But with the deadline in under 5 days, they move past it. The Jackal needs customized tools from Norman. The issue? Norman was clipped in the arm, joking he can't even wipe properly. He'll need the Jackal's help.
No one I trust.
At the hospital, Larry finally gives in, demanding a guarantee his brother won't be killed.
Guarantee?
Cost eye.
He reveals Norman is in Budapest, describing the location. Bianca also learns Norman was behind him finding her home. Inspired by the walker boot, the Jackal sketches a new weapon. Nuria, still doubtful, ignores his calls. At the airport, Charles watches a family, wondering about the life he's sacrificing for one last job. At MI6, Damien reports on Alexander Duggan, an elite operative thought to have died in 2013, but Bianca doubts it since his body was never found. She and Vince narrow Norman's location to a 90-minute radius from the airport, but Larry's vague description isn't much help. Bianca also realizes UDC is Rodan, the next target. She informs OC but keeps Norman's location secret, trusting only a few. Only OC besides Isabel can facilitate the operation needs with armed forces, but he needs to know everything. In Budapest, the Jackal meets with Norman Stoke. After a brief exchange, they set off together, both aware time is running out. Norman, still nursing an old injury, relies on the Jackal to help complete their next dangerous assignment.
Still too many.
MI6 reports 11 possible locations for Norman, but it's not enough. They must narrow it down quickly. Bianca's work is chaotic, but her personal life is worse. She visits Paul and Jasmine, only to learn Paul is staying with his ex-wife. Danger at home was the last straw. Bianca explains her job's risks, but Paul says he doesn't recognize her anymore and walks away. Teary-eyed, she struggles, unaware Jasmine is watching from the window. Norman takes the Jackal to his operation site, which matches the description perfectly as Larry described. As the Jackal settles in, he scans Norman's impressive collection of guns and sniper rifles, triggering memories of his service days. The target is 75 meters away, meaning he needs a weapon small enough to bypass metal detectors. He considers using a walker boot cast designed to smuggle parts through, an idea Norman approves of.
The firing mechanism.
They decide on a lightweight, low-round count disposable barrel to evade scanners.
Usually it'll be a...
7 shots should be enough for the infamous Jackal. With a solid plan in place, they waste no time and get to work. Though preoccupied with his own domestic troubles, the Jackal keeps a close eye on Nuria through his phone. Despite the tension, he shares a light moment with Norman, casually probing about his recent business trip. Norman reveals that he was in Belarus when he was ambushed and shot at by MI6 and Bianca.
I got a tip off the wrong way.
He adds that an anonymous tip-off warned him to clear out just in time. The Jackal, wary of loose ends, issues a stern warning. This better not come back to haunt them. Vince calls Bianca in the morning with news. They've pinpointed a possible location for Norman's hideout. So far, this is their best lead. Wasting no time, Bianca immediately contacts OC for authorization. Meanwhile, Norman is nearly finished constructing the cast, which, in a brilliant twist, doubles as a concealed weapon. He demonstrates its assembly to the Jackal. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary cast, but no one would suspect its true purpose.
I can take this for a spin without a track.
Norman retires for the night while MI6 operatives arrive in Budapest. Meanwhile, the Jackal heads out to test the gun, using a watermelon for target practice. He makes clean shots, fine-tuning the weapon and calibrating it to meet his exact needs. Unaware that Bianca, Vince, and their team are closing in on Norman's safe house, the Jackal drives back while chatting with Nuria on the phone. However, something feels off. His instincts kick in. He abruptly ends the call, much to Nuria's annoyance, and spots a suspicious SUV circling the area. Pulling over near a coffee shop, he watches closely. Then, the power in the area suddenly cuts out. That confirms it, they've been compromised. Wasting no time, the Jackal hurriedly calls Norman, warning him that he has unexpected visitors.
You got visitors.
One of them an all too familiar friend from MI6. His message is clear: it's time to clean up. After deleting the files, Norman tries to buy some time with a crossfire, but he's quickly apprehended. He doesn't clean up well, and Bianca is quick to notice. She questions him about the Jackal, observing that Norman is clearly working on something new.
Did you have a little friend?
A bag of the Jackal's belongings sits on the sofa, and Bianca decides to use it as bait, hoping to lure him out. To pressure Norman, she reveals that his own brother was the one who tipped them off about him.
It was Larry.
Bianca uses this revelation to break him, forcing him to talk. The Jackal swiftly cleans up and shoots Norman before making his escape on horseback. The pursuing team tries to close in, but their shots miss as he races into the woods.
Can you see it?
Pick me up.
Suddenly, a tree branch strikes the Jackal, knocking him off the horse. Bianca watches as the horse runs back alone. The Jackal regains his footing and manages to take down one of the soldiers, but the bullet struck her vest. Determined, the Jackal continues galloping into the woods. A tense cat-and-mouse chase ensues, with Bianca relentlessly firing a barrage of bullets into the water, hoping to hit him. Despite her efforts, the Jackal slips away, disappearing into the darkness. Furious, Bianca screams in frustration, realizing she has lost him once again. The Jackal survives, but it's undoubtedly a close call. After falling asleep in a nearby barn, he awakens to find a gun pointed at his face. He's struck unconscious, tied up, and seems poised to meet a grim fate. Meanwhile, the Jackal is interrogated by his captor, this wary farmer who complains about the stranger trampling his garden. The farmer speaks in Hungarian, which the Jackal doesn't understand. After a while, the farmer considers setting him free. But when he discovers Jackal's weapon, he changes his mind and brings him inside at gunpoint. Jackal offers money to be released, but the farmer doesn't understand. The farmer makes a quick call to his colleague, Gabby, sharing the information. Gabby immediately summons his farmhand, Laszlo, to help translate. The Jackal tells them he wants to resolve the situation quickly by paying them off.
Become no.
And all parties agree to the plan, making their way to join Attila and the Jackal at the farmhouse. Not long after, they encounter a police blockade on their way. Meanwhile, a delighted Attila offers his prisoner food, but the Jackal isn't in the mood. The farmer, however, decides to force-feed it to him. Big mistake. The Jackal seizes the opportunity and headbutts Attila unconscious. At the checkpoint, Gabby and Laszlo are warned about the dangerous killer nearby. Despite the warnings, Gabby, focused on the rewards, is excited, believing it will be a big payday for them. He calls his comrade to alert him, while Attila's phone rings on the table but no one answers. After killing Attila, the Jackal struggles to start a couple of cars before hiding as Gabby and Laszlo arrive. Gabby, confused about Attila's lack of response, takes his gun and cautiously enters the house. Furious when he discovers Attila's death, Gabby opens fire at the Jackal, who tries to escape but fails to start the truck. The Jackal crawls out from beneath the vehicle, shoots Gabby in the leg and prepares to finish him off. Just as things look dire, Laszlo, the young man who speaks English, is ordered to drive the Jackal past the police blockades, narrowly avoiding capture. The authorities are all over Norman's workshop. His computer is wiped, but Vince has requested the Hungarians to try and recover any data their experts can salvage. Bianca grabs Jackal's jacket and slips it inside her coat before they are called out to the farmhouse following the deaths. However, the Jackal is already long gone.
Dylan, I want you to keep driving, do you understand me?
He takes Laszlo's phone, orders him to keep driving, and calls Nuria, expressing concern. He tells her he's gotten himself into a bit of a mess and isn't sure if he'll make it back to Spain.
Bit of a mess.
He apologizes for dragging her into everything and reveals he's in Budapest, Hungary. Nuria, however, insists on helping and agrees to assist him. Nuria, of course, knows about the secret room.
It's a room.
I know.
And the Jackal gives her specific instructions on how to handle the situation. Meanwhile, it seems Nuria and her mother had originally gone to consult a lawyer about a divorce. However, it no longer matters, she has changed her mind. The Jackal, however, appears lost in thought, struggling to find a way to escape the mess he's in. At MI6, Isabel and Ossie discuss their partial success. Norman Stoke is dead, but the Jackal got away. They now have his prints and DNA in global databases. Bianca and Vince are to move on with Operation Anubis.
Did you come up with that?
I did.
Isabel doubts Ossie's actions, but after we see him deleting messages about UDC, Bianca and Vince investigate the scene, finding multiple prints on the dead brothers. One should match the car, suggesting they're on the right track. Just then, Ossie calls with news that Isabel is pushing forward with Operation Anubis. They need Bianca back at the office.
He's here in Hungary. He can't have got fucked.
But she argues it's better to stay on site since the Jackal's still in Hungary. UDC remains in Croatia, determined to announce River in the next 4 days, despite opposition from his colleagues. As the majority shareholder with 51% of the stocks, he's confident the board will try to stop him.
Where is this announcement happen?
Good meeting, guys.
He asks his partner to promise that he'll proceed, even if danger strikes.
Nothing's gonna happen to you.
UDC rehearses his presentation behind thick bulletproof glass,
Bullet resist.
with his head of security advising against pacing during the speech. The plan is to stay protected from snipers. UDC firmly believes River will change the world by bringing transparency to money flow, no matter the risks involved. This gives the Jackal some time to prepare for his next strike, but leaving Hungary won't be easy. Reports of his actions are everywhere, and the public is being asked to stay vigilant. He's also troubled by his past, filled with memories of death and violence from his army days.
You have good men fake.
The Jackal decides to spare the driver's life, making him promise not to talk to the police. Laszlo agrees and the Jackal quietly slips away. He heads to an internet cafe to contact his ally. While his contact grows anxious and loses confidence in him, the Jackal reassures her that he'll be at the venue and will carry out the mission. At MI6, Carver speaks with Damien about Alexander Duggan and mentions a possible mole, an attractive woman Damien slept with while on holiday. He's unsure if she leaked details about Belarus.
I don't understand.
The Jackal, dealing with his situation and relationship, asks Nuria to help with some deliveries. He explains that the disguises are crucial for him to escape Hungary. Nuria questions if it's all worth it, and he pauses before answering.
It was.
She watches him carefully, wanting to see how he handles everything. Nuria and a transformed Jackal arrive at the airport. After putting on its special cast on his left leg, he becomes the perfect image of a frail old man in a wheelchair. Meanwhile, Bianca and Vince, coincidentally at the same airport, unknowingly pass by him. Either way, upon learning of UDC's move to announce River in Tallinn from a source Ossie refuses to name, Isabel makes a bold decision to divert Bianca from her flight back to London and redirect her to Tallinn, Estonia instead.
You're going to Tallinn.
When Bianca and Vince board the flight, they happen to sit in the seats right in front of the Jackal, which immediately triggers the Jackal's instincts. They land without incident, and all parties check into their rooms at the same time. However, that night the Estonian police arrive asking questions. The Jackal claims to be an architectural engineer on a business trip. Apparently, there's been a burglary in the area, and despite his evasiveness, the Jackal raises some suspicion. The police take down his number but let him go.
Look, I hope you don't mind me calling.
The Jackal then decides to call Rasmus, a man who once helped him find a phone on a concert floor. The Jackal is in Tallinn for a survey, he claims, and they meet for a drink before spending the night at Rasmus' apartment. Still in Tallinn, the Jackal meets Leonora at the library, where he informs her that intelligence agents are in the area. He asks for her people's help in throwing them off his trail. She is impressed that he is willing to ask for assistance, and with Rodan arriving on Friday, the pressure on the Jackal to deliver is mounting. He wants to keep his distance, but Leonora calls in some favors to slow down the MI6 agents.
I need some priority assistance on site.
Speaking of MI6, they have assembled a team for Operation Anubis in Tallinn, backed by the Foreign Secretary, who is furious over Manfred's murder. With no leads from the Dust Prince, Bianca only caught a glimpse of the Jackal at night, and the sketch doesn't resemble him much. Back in Croatia, UDC returns from his swim to a report. His assassin was last tracked in Hungary. Security urges him to cancel the river launch, but he refuses. With 1,000 NDA-signed guests waiting, backing out now would make him look weak. Meanwhile, the Jackal, having spent the night with venue worker Rasmus, now has an inside connection without Rasmus even realizing it. In Cadiz, Nuria is deep in thought. Her mother and brother Alvaro keep voicing concerns about Charles and his secretive activities.
¿Tú crees lo que te ha contado?
Despite his infidelity, she tries to trust him. But they know about his hidden cash stash and pressure her to let Alvaro take some to invest in a bar. Reluctantly, she agrees. However, Alvaro gets greedy, taking more money than planned, and even stealing a gun. Unbeknownst to them, the Jackal watches everything unfold on his security camera. After some fun together, the Jackal convinces Rasmus, under the pretense of being an architect, to take him to the concert building. Once there, Rasmus hands him his access key, allowing him to explore freely. The Jackal immediately gets to work, identifying a secure location within the building to stage his operation. When he's done, he emerges, thanking Rasmus abundantly.
That was a big thing.
At Operation Anubis, Aussie contacts Keith Canvey, but he's uncooperative. Meanwhile, Oscar Ilves reports a police officer linked the photo fit to Peter Gibson, an Airbnb guest in Tallinn. Unfortunately, Bianca and Victor are caught in an ambush but escape unharmed, taking down the attackers. Shaken, Bianca realizes she was the target.
Be careful.
Despite the slight delay, the pair arrive at the Airbnb, where a team of soldiers is waiting to assist with the raid. However, the Jackal has already moved on, luckily for him, now staying with Rasmus. He tells Rasmus he has a good man's face, thanking him for his kindness over the past few days before setting out to leave.
You got a good man face, Rasmus.
Meanwhile, news reports on television are filled with speculation about the mystery venues for UDC's upcoming big event. It seems UDC has caused quite a stir with his latest invention, fueling hatred among different social classes. Meanwhile, the Jackal's clients in New York are disappointed by the botched Russian hit on Bianca and Victor in Tallinn, revealing that they were the ones behind it. Meanwhile, the Jackal stocks up on a ton of food before heading back to the venue. He buys an excessive amount from a vendor, then blends into the crowd at the concert. The pianist captivates the audience, earning a round of applause, while the Jackal quietly slips through the crowd into the restricted section above the stage. Squeezing himself into a hidden spot with his supplies, he sets up his gun and settles in, waiting for his target to arrive in 2 days. As he sleeps, he is haunted by memories of past operations that went wrong, and the day he first met his wife. At the MI6 operations base, the team confirms that the hitmen who attempted the assassination were Russian. The Jackal's updated facial composite has been distributed to all Estonian police. But the Jackal never looks the same way twice. However, he hasn't used his credit card since the Airbnb, making him difficult to track. On the eve of the big day, all necessary security measures are in place at the venue. Vince and Bianca meet with Keith to review every detail. The concert building will be locked down at 1800 hours. No one gets in or out without authorization. Armed guards will occupy the upper levels, overseeing the audience. Little do they know the Jackal is already ahead of them. He's been inside the building for days, comfortably waiting for his moment. As he lies in hiding, memories weigh on him. The ghosts of past missions gone wrong haunt his mind. And then there's Nuria, the wild card. When they first met, she was full of life, working as a waitress. Now, believing this might be the end of the road for him, a single tear slips down his cheek. The big day arrives. The venue is swarming with police, security personnel, and Secret Service agents. The Jackal remains in his hiding spot, waiting. A montage of news reports in multiple languages runs on TV screens worldwide. Outside, crowds gather as Bianca and Vince arrive for a final security sweep of the building. As they scan the area, Bianca nearly spots the Jackal's position. It's a close call. Guests begin filing into the concert hall. Amidst the rising tension, UDC arrives at the venue. Despite his nerves, the launch must go on. His security team constantly reminds him to stay behind the bulletproof glass. Meanwhile, the Jackal slips from his hiding spot. Moving methodically, he eliminates a few guards, clearing his path to the sniping position. As the event is televised, Bianca's family watches from London, while Winthrop and his team monitor from New York. On stage, Rima Buttons, a chatty fellow activist,
Ladies, gentlemen,
introduces UDC, who ascends via an elevated platform. UDC begins his speech.
Has to be done.
Nauseating.
The power.
Hoarding what belongs to the many and keeping it for the privileged few, the Jackal takes aim, waiting for UDC to step beyond the bulletproof glass. But in an instant, everything goes wrong. A second shooter storms the stage, attempting, but failing, to assassinate UDC. the chaos throws off the Jackal's timing.
Give me the watch.
Back in London, Bianca's family watches in shock. On live TV, Bianca is caught in the middle of the mayhem. With no other option, the Jackal is forced to abort the mission. Watching the chaos unfold, Winthrop and his team are perplexed. The Jackal makes a hasty exit, blending into the panicked crowd. He barely slips past Vince, but just as he thinks he's in the clear, Rasmus spots him outside and calls out his name. Tragically, the Jackal has no choice. He swiftly breaks Rasmus's neck, leaving his body on the side of the road. From a distance, Bianca watches in disbelief. In 2013 Afghanistan, the Jackal is seen serving as a sniper in the British Army. He argues with his spotter, Gary, about their target. Jackal is convinced it's not the right man and is prepared to wait as long as necessary. He urges his partner to be patient, determined to take out the correct target. His real name is revealed to be Alexander Duggan. The world watches as news of the UDC assassination attempt spreads. In New York, Leonore reveals the shooter was from UDC's security. Chaos erupts. Winthrop, furious, chastising everyone for the UDC kill failure. With Rivers' launch in a week, Leonore must confirm the Jackal's position. Failure isn't an option.
Anyone associated with that failure?
The MI6 team searches the concert venue, collecting the Jackal's urine sample and the assassination weapon. The second shooter, a fanatic, left a manifesto claiming UDC wants River for control, not the noble reasons he publicly claims. In his mansion, UDC and his security scramble to figure out how someone infiltrated their ranks. Bianca and the team review security footage, searching for someone matching the Jackal's e-fit.
Where's your report on Alexander?
Damien sends over an updated file on Alexander Duggan, a soldier believed dead, with heavily redacted details indicating a classified operation. In another flashback from that operation, the snipers are still waiting for their target, focusing on a Taliban compound. They take the shot, hitting their man, then quickly make a run for it, retreating with the rest of their unit and trucks they've named Phantom and Jackal. Back at base, Alexander is seen joking around with his comrades, receiving a bottle of booze as a reward for a job well done. During some time off in Cyprus, the team gets exceedingly drunk. Gary gets into an altercation with a man at the bar, but the man keeps the peace by offering to buy him a drink.
Another round.
Meanwhile, his friend strikes up a conversation with the group, asking questions about their time in the army and whether they might be interested in earning some extra money.
We're making a lot more money.
He mentions that someone is willing to pay them $20,000 each to take care of a problem for a friend.
It's my card.
The man leaves a card for contact and the revelry continues, but Alexander is clearly still thinking about the offer.
And DNA. There's no record of.
At MI6, they still can't identify the Jackal, despite having his fingerprints and DNA.
Standing sniper.
Bianca, however, is sure it's Alexander Duggan. She notices suspicious gaps in his file. Bianca is informed by Isabel that she needs to meet with the foreign secretary. When they meet, they pressure him into granting access to Alexander's file. Reluctantly, he agrees.
Enjoy your play.
Thank you.
A shot through a man's skull in Turkey revealed that Gary and Alexander took the job for Barzani, a journalist apparently. Those who hired them are impressed, happily handing over the cash and offering them another job, complete with all the logistics.
You're the best.
They reluctantly decline as they still have active duty time to serve in the army and can't just go missing.
You have my number.
In Spain, Nuria and her brother Alvaro watch the news reports featuring a composite sketch, and he believes it's Charles. Nuria is hesitant to believe it, but when she calls the Jackal, his reaction confirms her worst fears. The Jackal urges Nuria to tell Alvaro not to say anything about his suspicions, promising they will reunite tomorrow. Furious, Nuria demands that when he returns home, she will need to know the full truth. In London, Bianca's daughter Jasmine visits her and asks why their family isn't back together. Bianca replies that she's still figuring out how to keep them safe. When Jasmine asks about Larry's claims that Bianca killed his girl, Bianca denies it, saying she had nothing to do with the attack. Bianca struggles to keep her emotions in check as she tries to reassure Jasmine.
To protect you.
During an extraction mission in Afghanistan, Gary and Alexander are placed on overwatch while the rest of their unit heads to a compound to extract their target, Najib Khan, a Taliban field commander. Things quickly go wrong when the team gets too aggressive.
Friend of British. I'm not gonna tell you again.
Unbeknownst to them, a sniper from a high vantage point catches Duggan off guard. He fires just before his comrades are hit. But the dead sniper's finger stays on the trigger, unleashing rapid shots into the air. The gunfire causes chaos, and in the confusion, negotiations fail. escalating into a bloody machine gun fight. As a result, dozens of innocent people who were attending a wedding inside the compound are caught in the crossfire, turning the celebration into a horrific massacre. Realizing that civilians are being injured, Alexander tries to stop his comrades, but is horrified as they continue to kill without remorse. In shock, he watches as they plan to cover up the massacre. The group leader orders everyone to stay silent about what happened. Later, as the compound is blown up, Gary and Alexander remain silent, visibly upset and withdrawn from the rest of the team. The others celebrate the destruction, while the two men struggle with the violence they've witnessed.
Promises? Did you actually mean them?
Bianca visits Larry in jail. He tells her that they're more alike than she realizes. They kill and lie but for their own right reasons, and he believes she does the same. She expresses sympathy for what happened to Emma and Allison, but Larry doesn't believe her. He tells her she's more sick than he is, before using a shiv he'd hidden in the room to slit his own throat in front of her. Bianca watches helplessly as Larry dies, then retreats to MI6, overcome with sorrow. Rattled by what she's witnessed, she speaks to Victor, who tries to comfort her. He urges her to remember why she does her job, to protect people. To help cheer her up, he informs her that she's been granted access to Alexander's file, which is waiting for her in the conference room, but there are conditions, including a signed NDA. Bianca manages to compose herself long enough to review the brief on Duggan. The file states that the covert unit Alexander was part of was completely wiped out in a large explosion caused by an improvised explosive device. But Bianca doesn't buy it, sensing a connection between Alexander and the Jackal.
Something's not right.
After reading the file, Ossie is forced to hand it over to Isabel before being taken away by Carver. In the final flashbacks to Afghanistan, two cars are driving through the desert when Alexander orders them to stop, believing he has spotted something suspicious.
360 cover!
Fearing an explosive device, the unit stays behind while Alexander and Gary investigate. When it looks like they've found nothing, Alexander sets off a remote-controlled bomb in the two vehicles, killing his entire unit except for Gary. In a panic, Gary thinks they're under attack, prompting Alexander to assure him that they're not, and that they need to go somewhere they can't be found. Over in Croatia, all boats coming to and from the island are closely monitored, and the Jackal is keeping a watchful eye. Leonora shows up, immediately breaking his train of thought. She reminds him that with River launching in 48 hours, they have a very slim window to get this done. But the Jackal is far from finished and remains adamant about completing the job. Despite the threat against him, UDC still takes his daily swim, though now flanked by speedboats and a guard swimming alongside him. He continues to laugh off the danger, seeing the attempted assassination as proof that he's disrupting the right people. He tells his partner to promise that if he doesn't make it, they will ensure River gets off the ground. Back in London, Bianca visits Captain Mike Baldwin, a former colleague of Duggan's from their time in Afghanistan. Now in hospice care, suffering from lung cancer due to his years of service, he is frail but still sharp. Wasting no time, Bianca gets straight to the point. She wants details on Alexander Duggan and she wants them now. She preys on his vulnerability, using his need for care to pressure him for answers, despite his reluctance to talk.
I need more morphine.
In Croatia, the Jackal searches for a reliable weapon while on a boat, planning his approach to UDC. With pressure mounting, he knows he must find the perfect tool for the job. With new information on Alexander Duggan's close associate, Gary Cobb, a potentially crucial lead, Bianca brings the update to Isabel. However, she is instead informed that the investigation is being shut down, citing a lack of funds and the high number of casualties, which are deemed not worth it to track down one man. The bigger picture, Isabel insists, is that they're wasting resources and need to focus elsewhere. Bianca pushes back against the decision, but Isabel refuses to budge. Meanwhile, she's also getting no response from Ossie,
About Hungary. We've been over that.
who is still being interrogated by Carver under suspicion of being the mole. Before his next move on UDC, the Jackal returns to Cadiz to retrieve items from his vault. It's also time to go home. He searches for Nuria but doesn't find her. Instead, he spends time with Carlitos, watching his son play in the nursery. Unbeknownst to him, Nuria watches his every move through the baby monitor. Later, she confronts him, no longer in doubt. Her husband Charles and the Jackal are one and the same. Furious and betrayed, she demands the truth, questioning their entire relationship. Anger boiling over, she forces him to say it out loud, that he kills for money.
I kill people for money!
With the truth finally spoken, Nuria, still shaken, insists that it's not sufficient. Bianca visits Ossie at the gym, but he's cold and distant. She presses for answers, but he refuses, shutting her out completely.
If the Jackal kills UDC...
Don't take this per...
His sudden change in attitude is unsettling. Has Carver gotten to him?
OC.
With nowhere else to turn, Bianca goes to see Paul. Their relationship feels more strained than ever, her work constantly pulling them apart. She confesses that she misses him, unsure how to fix their marriage. But Paul sees through her. Even now, she's here to unload about work, not truly about them.
They are two very different.
I miss you.
Frustrated but calm, he tells her she needs to make a choice.
But you love it then.
Her family can't just be her fallback when everything else crumbles. Bianca listens, but deep down, she knows walking away from the job isn't that simple. As they sit together, the Jackal assures Nuria he's done with this life, but he has one last job to finish.
There's one more job.
He just needs 24 hours. It breaks her, and she struggles to process everything. The next morning, Alvaro visits his sister, but he's brought trouble.
Tengo una oportunidad para él del carajo.
He's been talking to Jimmy Teguero, a shady Cuban gangster, and has promised that Charles will meet him. Nuria immediately sees danger, but Alvaro warns that he knows Charles's secrets and could expose them.
Y no le he dicho nada.
Furious, she confronts her husband,
Worst person you can meet.
but the Jackal stays calm, composed, and promises to make things right.
So, I hear you need some help.
He speaks to Alvaro and agrees to go to this business meeting with him, which delights Alvaro.
You got me?
Yeah.
In Croatia, Marjorie, a board representative, visits UDC on the island,
Board wants you to postpone River.
urging him to delay River by a month. Daghouse shares are crashing and he's lost $1.2 billion in days. Desperate shareholders push him, but UDC refuses.
That's something I embrace.
The board threatens to quit, he doesn't care. River launches tomorrow. In New York, Winthrop meets the UK's foreign secretary who shares bad news. European courts failed to block River's release. The minister is secretly involved in UDC's planned assassination. They agree that the Jackal's attempt is now their last chance to stop him.
All we have left is our Hail Mary.
In the meantime, the Jackal borrows a boat from a fisherman friend, claiming he wants to spend a few hours fishing. Meanwhile, Jimmy Teguero and Alvaro wait at a restaurant, expecting their wealthy new business partner. From his position on the water, the Jackal takes a precise shot, killing Teguero instantly and leaving everyone in shock. Without hesitation, he sets course for Croatia, where he arrives later that night, keeping a low profile, appreciating the late Norman's weapon art as he prepares for his next move.
You're an artist, Norman.
Feeling abandoned, Bianca spends the night in her daughter's room. Meanwhile, UDC turns off the screen as he prepares for the next day, the same routine followed by the Jackal, who gazes out at the sea from his window before setting off into his nightmare.
You want to hear? Is that enough?
The next day, Bianca reads a story about the death of a Spanish gangster. The skill and precision of the kill definitely intrigue her. In the morning, the Jackal hires a boat for a birdwatching trip, claiming he's interested in shooting a calandra lark on Plavnik Island. Once out at sea, he quietly takes care of the boat's owner, ensuring no distractions. He then prepares his rifle, setting it up on a Steadicam rig to guarantee precision. With the gun perfectly positioned, he takes a few test shots, making sure everything is in order before his main target. His calm and focused demeanor shows that he's out of time and wants to get this job done. With 5 hours to go before River goes live,
5 hours.
UDC wants to stay in bed but is urged to clear his head with a swim. Jackal's boat is spotted by security, but he quickly covers his equipment and pretends to fish. He is just outside the 2-mile protection perimeter for UDC, so security leaves him alone. Thinking UDC is safe for now, as per the usual security routine, UDC begins his swim under tight protection. Immediately, the Jackal spots UDC moving in the space and sets up his rifle with a bullet in the chamber. However, his clear shot of UDC on land is lost as a passing boat obstructs his view. Drones spot suspicious activity and go to investigate, forcing the Jackal to kill a man on a jet ski. But before the Jackal can jam the signal, the drone camera captures the killing. With his cover blown, the tension rises as UDC's life hangs in the balance. A code red is issued. UDC's team scrambles to keep him underwater and out of sight, but he struggles to understand what's happening. A co-swimmer security guard tries to pull him under, but is shot when they surface for air. Realizing he's in danger, UDC, an exceptional swimmer, dives deep, swimming as low as possible toward the dock. The Jackal patiently waits for him to resurface, which he eventually does. The Jackal takes the shot, hitting UDC in the throat. With the job finally complete, the Jackal flees in the boat, but he's not alone. Security gives chase. In Cadiz, Nuria learns from Inspector Ana Remica that Alvaro is being questioned about the gangster's death. Worried he'll talk, she calls her husband, who is still trying to slip out of Croatia undetected. When he's stopped by the police, he initially plays along, but impatience gets the better of him, and he makes a run for it, breaking through the police blockade. This sparks a high-speed chase through the streets of Split. He drives with great skill, managing to momentarily evade them. Although the police continue their pursuit, he expertly maneuvers around the spike strips in one swift move, disappearing from their sight. On Valmarin Island, UDC's death is announced.
This morning, I lost my dear friend,
leading the Doghouse board to postpone the river launch indefinitely. In New York, Winthrop celebrates but warns of loose ends ahead.
Be considered.
At MI6, Bianca is determined and confronts Isabel again about Jimmy Teguero's death, linking it to UDC's.
Jimmy Teguero.
She argues both were killed from a boat at a distance, suspecting the same killer.
Here's another. The case is closed, Bianca.
Isabel dismisses her, saying MI6 is a team, not an individual effort.
What are you saying?
She closes the case, and when Bianca quits, Isabel seems satisfied with the outcome. As Bianca leaves, the foreign secretary arrives and informs Isabel that their friends want to capture the Jackal now that the deed is done, thanking her for a job well done. It turns out Isabel was compromised after all, and she's convinced that Bianca will hand in her notice. However, that's a problem as the foreign secretary worries that Bianca could become a liability. To prevent that, the secretary wants Bianca to go after the Jackal and eliminate him, after which they'll deal with Bianca.
Let her deal with him.
In Spain, Nuria bails out Alvaro but warns him to stay away for endangering her family. Furious, Alvaro lashes out as she leaves, especially after she coldly compares him to their father before driving off. The Jackal at high speed swerves to avoid hitting a young boy playing with a ball at the edge of a sharp bend, causing his car to flip over the roadside. Pulled to safety just in time by a passerby, he appears dazed as the Good Samaritan innocently calls the police and emergency services. However, knowing they are on their way, the Jackal quickly turns on his rescuer, stealing the stranger's car at gunpoint before making his escape. Bianca visits Paul at the university and asks him to come home.
I have a question.
She promises to leave MI6 for their family. Though skeptical at first, he softens as she admits her mistakes.
I just want my husband back.
It's a heartfelt moment as she finally acknowledges putting work before them. Meanwhile, the Jackal, now in a remote area, takes a moment to treat his wounds. Knowing he can't linger, he torches the stolen truck, sending it over a cliff. Time is running out. Introducing himself as Richard, he approaches an elderly English couple, Liz and Trevor, camping around with their caravan. Playing the part, he clutches his chest and claims he's unwell, blaming high blood pressure. He politely asks for a lift to the nearest hospital. Concerned, they agree.
It's a hospital, lad.
Bianca enjoys a warm reunion with her family as Paul prepares dinner, creating a rare peaceful moment. However, the evening is cut short when Isabel arrives unannounced.
Come in.
Without hesitation, she asks Bianca for a private conversation, her tone serious. As they drive, the elderly couple struggles to find the hospital the Jackal mentioned. Sensing their confusion, he calmly tells them there's a change of plan.
Montenegro border.
They hesitate, but he pulls out a gun, demanding they take him to the Montenegro border.
Yeah.
He assures them he won't hurt anyone, so long as they do exactly as he says.
We can reopen the case.
At Bianca's house, Isabel urges her to go after the Jackal one last time, insisting they need proper closure for the sake of those they've lost. However, it must be done secretly, an unsanctioned mission.
No.
Bianca refuses, unwilling to break the rules. That night, the Jackal and the couple encounter a police checkpoint on the road to the Montenegro border. Scanning the blockade, the Jackal quickly realizes there's no easy way through and instructs Trevor to take a nearby alternate route. After driving for some time, the Jackal notices the couple is exhausted and decides to stop for a short rest.
Is it alright if I go out for a smoke?
Trevor asks for permission to step outside for a smoke, which they end up sharing as they engage in a tense conversation. Nervous and uncertain about their fate, Trevor voices his fear that the Jackal will kill them once they're no longer useful.
Where did you come from?
He wonders aloud what kind of upbringing could have produced someone like the Jackal, especially if his parents were kind. The Jackal, for a brief moment, finds his own moral compass shaken as he watches the frightened couple. The old woman panics and stabs him in the shoulder while his attention is elsewhere. A struggle ensues with Trevor, and despite having grown somewhat fond of them, the Jackal is left with no choice. With anguish in his eyes, he shoots them both dead, letting out a gruff wail of rage, consumed by grief and frustration. On the other side, Bianca can't shake off Isabel's proposal, the thought lingering in her mind. Sensing this, Paul grows frustrated and tells her to just go, knowing she won't let it rest.
Look, if you're going to...
He's upset but understands this is who she is. After breaking down, the Jackal pulls himself together and calls Nuria. He suggests a trip with her and Carlitos, away from everything, assuring her of his love. But Nuria isn't fooled. She hears the tension in his voice and knows something is wrong, yet offers him support, letting him believe she's on board. However, her expression tells a different story, one the Jackal fails to notice. Bianca enlists Vince's help, and together they head to Spain to follow up on the Tegero link. Meanwhile, the Jackal siphons gasoline from a vehicle, setting it up for an explosion to erase any traces of his presence. With his mess cleaned up, he moves on, blending in with a passenger tour van crossing the border. Bianca and Vince arrive in Cadiz and speak with the investigator handling the gangster's murder case. She informs them that Nuria's brother Alvaro is being released. Bianca's direct approach yields little progress, but Vince's softer touch proves more effective, convincing the investigator to bring up Alvaro's file. This leads them to Nuria, his sister, who is apparently married to a wealthy Englishman named Charles Calthrop. Realizing they've found their man, Bianca and Vince demand an address. Meanwhile, the Jackal arrives in Spain and uses a computer to demand his payment within 24 hours. Leonor contacts her boss, Zena, who assures her the payment and her finder's fee will be processed. However, Zena has another plan in motion, informing Leonor that someone will be meeting her soon to discuss further matters. Bianca and Vince arrive at the Jackal's villa and set up a stakeout, waiting for him to return.
We're gonna take him alive.
Bianca insists on taking the Jackal alive. She needs answers. She knows there's a larger conspiracy at play and is determined to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, Nuria, growing increasingly anxious about the future and with no sign of the Jackal, begins stuffing in as much cash as she can grab from his vault, torn between waiting for him and fleeing while she still has the chance.
I'm at the hotel.
Leonor was told to wait for someone named Simon after finishing her work in Croatia, but something feels off. Ignoring orders, she flees her hotel just in time. Someone was sent to kill her. Trusting her instincts saves her life. Meanwhile, Jasmine texts her mother, who is already at work, waiting for the Jackal. Nuria, determined to leave this life behind, takes a taxi with her son instead of using her private car. Bianca quickly realizes that Nuria isn't just going somewhere, she's running away. And she's right. Nuria is exhausted and refuses to keep putting her son in danger. As the Jackal leaves the airport, he rents a car but leaves the suitcase he's been carrying at arrivals. When he arrives at the villa, Bianca and Vince, who have been waiting, confirm it's him and notice he's injured in the shoulder. They follow him inside. The Jackal finds the house empty. Meanwhile, Leonor calls to warn him that MI6 knows where he is and is closing in on him.
And they're coming for you.
Panicking, he decides to pack up and flee. It turns out that Nuria has left a sizable amount of money in the drawers. As Bianca and Vince move in, they're interrupted by Alvaro, who arrives drunk and demanding to see Nuria. He pulls a gun on them but is shot down. Realizing there's no way out, the Jackal shuts off the power to the house and locks himself in his vault to avoid detection. Vince searches downstairs while Bianca takes the stairs. She briefly stops to look in the mirror but unknowingly stands just in front of the vault, where the Jackal is hiding and watching her. Bianca seems to have spotted him but doesn't act on it. At this point they seem to be hunting a ghost. Bianca triggers the fire alarm, prompting the Jackal to come out and investigate. Vince notices the red dot laser aimed at Bianca's face, but the shot unfortunately hits him instead while he tries to save her. Bianca fights back, firing rapidly at the Jackal but misses.
No one else needs to die.
There's a tense silence before the two face off, with Bianca calling him Duggan.
Why do you do it, Duggan?
As they try to outwit each other, they both acknowledge they're in this position because they both like to win. She offers to help him find Nuria, saying it doesn't have to end this way, but he insists it does, gains the upper hand and shoots her dead. He takes a long look at her lifeless body, blood oozing from her mouth, before making his escape. As the Jackal tries to reach Nuria, she ignores his calls, throwing her phone into a trash can as she continues walking with little Carlitos. Promising to find her, he's struck by a speeding car.
And I will find you.
A few days later, Ossie is back at MI6, where Isabel has been promoted to chief. The two reflect on Bianca and Vince's deaths, with Isabel claiming Bianca went rogue.
Like it's a bad thing.
It's later revealed that before her death, Bianca had told Ossie she went after the Jackal on Isabel's orders. He deletes the message, then appears to return to his work. In Budapest, the Jackal is seen getting off a train in one of his disguises. He has miraculously survived and meets Leonore at a park. It turns out Winthrop failed to pay either of them, instead paying to have them both killed.
How did you survive that?
Though they're alive, Leonore wants to go after Winthrop and his associates. He agrees, but first he wants to find his family. With that, he disappears into the crowd. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to our channel if you haven't and let us know where you're watching from in the comments section. Your support is greatly appreciated, my dear friend. Feel free to click on the next video. Thank you.